The boys.
You hear the sound, right? Oh, it gives me goosebumps every time I hear it.
Makes me wish I had a blazer with a CBS logo on it.
Oh,
You know?
SEC 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. This is the sound you want to hear every Saturday. That's right. It's the Dadbodd podcast, episode 89, and it's the college football breakdown, episode 1 of this.
Yep.
Let's stop the music right now. We get the idea.
I'm excited we're doing this. I'm really excited we're doing this. We've never done this before, so
I think it's something that we probably should have done last year. I think once we started going, but I think this is something that we need to do annually, especially like August is prep time. You get the magazines are all out, and you just start rolling along. And quite frankly, I'm not watching time on this one. We need to hit all the teams, all the conferences, everything under the sun to get people prepped for the college football season. I'm Guns Picks. This is the intro, and I'm joined with another college football fan. There's probably really a three out of the four are very dedicated to college football betting and college football in general outside their teams. So you're going to see myself, and joining me tonight is Pun Picks. And you're also going to see a little bit of LockBets.net. Not in this episode, but you're going to see him in future episodes. So I'm excited for it. Pun, you're Florida, Pun, right now.
I'm live from SEC country.
That view that you have right now is not green screened. I just want to say that to the people right now. That is a natural environment that you're sitting in right now. You are Florida Pun.
I am Florida Pun, vacation Pun till Sunday. But dude, so I started researching for this segment.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't super excited for college football. I mean, I was, but I mean, I was, but I wasn't, right? After doing some research and reading and getting into the middle of the SEC, I'm ready to go.
And
once you see some of these games on the slate, you're thinking, my God, can we fast forward to September already?
Right. It gets you right. You're not motivated to look at the magazines. You're not motivated for college football, especially like you got the baseball grind, you got the chase. So you're not ready, and you're kind of apprehensive to even start looking into it. But you're coming in as a fan. I'm coming in as like, this is all I do. And I still like from a mentality standpoint, I'm never ready to go look at the books until I start looking into it. And then I'm like, oh, now it's time. This is fun.
Yeah. So during this segment, we're gonna so we're talking SEC. So let's get that out of the way.
Yeah.
We're going SEC.
This is episode 1, SEC. This is all SEC we're talking about. First. Every team of the SEC.
We're going Power 5. Probably multiple episodes a week to fit it in before before week 1 or week 0. I don't know what it's called. Is it called week 0 anymore?
It's week 0 is August 27th.
Is that a COVID thing, or is that still a real?
No. I think they had week 0 before COVID, right? I'm pretty sure they did. I
don't feel like I heard it a lot, but either way, we're trying to fit them all in. We're gonna get the Power 5 and then maybe some stragglers. Notre Dame being one of those stragglers.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have an independent. I was thinking about. I was like, we can't have an independent podcast because we're gonna talk about what, like Army, BYU, Liberty, and
Liberty independent?
Liberty's independent. Yes.
I didn't know.
Notre Dame is independent. Army, Navy's not independent. They're in the AAC. So.
Okay, that's what it was. That's the one I was missing. I knew BYU was, but anyway. So I started looking at it. We're gonna break down the standings, East and West of the SEC. We're gonna pick obviously the champions.
Yep.
We're gonna give you all some team totals we like, which I found one that I really, really like. I texted you about that earlier.
And I told you, don't tell me.
I didn't. I didn't. And then maybe just kind of Guns will be able to break down way more. Specifics about the SEC, and I'll kind of hop in when I can. But yeah, let's get this thing rolling. We got a lot to talk about.
We got a lot to
time.
unpack. It's gonna be a long episode for us, but we're gonna try to go as fast as we can.
Yeah, I bet we can get it done in 50 minutes or so.
Yeah, we'll do our best. I mean,
we say that all the time.
Yeah, we say that all the time. I wrote a lot of notes and I have a lot to talk about. I'll try to kind of try to shrink it down as best I can, but I want to make sure I get all the information out. Right. I want to start with SEC West side, and okay. I think we go top to bottom of importance, and I don't think we can't start this podcast without talking about the first team on the board from the SEC West, the one of the probably the favorite to win the national championship, runner-up last year.
Are you going top to bottom or bottom to top?
We're going top to bottom. Let's start with the good stuff, go to the bad, and then we'll start with, and the same thing with the SEC East. So we're going to start with the upper epsilon of the program, the darling prince of the SEC, and that is the Alabama Crimson Tide. I want to start with, I guess I'll start with you, Pun. You did some research on your end, and I'm kind of interested of what your thought process analyzing Alabama.
Okay, so how I did this, and how I did this with all the teams, I kind of obviously did some research on the team. Yeah. And then kind of went through the conference and broke down wins and losses and then ranked them that way. So I had Alabama undefeated in the West, going 8-0.
Wow.
And I really think they have a chance to go 12-0. Their non-conference schedule, their only hiccup is probably going to be Texas, but at Texas, we'll see what Texas has. It's going to be a huge game for Texas, obviously. But I think they're very feasible to go undefeated this season based off of their schedule. But I have them 8-0. They have a ton of returning starters. They have the revenge factor.
Yes.
With losing last year, which is huge. And then, they have some tough games, obviously, but not, when you're Alabama, you're never playing anybody better than you, right?
No.
So they should win every game. Now, will they? I don't know. A&M is a tough game. At Tennessee could be tough. So they do have some tough options, but man, I have them first. I have them going 8-0 in the West in the SEC.
Yep. I mean, for Alabama, I just broke them down from their strengths and weaknesses, and you're not wrong. They had more strengths and weaknesses. You have the strength side, of course, Bryce Young coming back for Alabama. He's going to contend for the Heisman spot again. Not an easy spot because usually, the last time this happened, Lamar Jackson won the Heisman, and then he went to the next year and kind of had a lackluster of a season before he went to the NFL. And Bryce did it as a freshman. I mean, he is the talent on the team. It's going to see where his maturity has gone as a player, because what you saw when he lost his top receivers in Mechie and Williams, he kind of struggled. He didn't know where to go. So maybe he builds a little bit of that dynamic with his new receivers. We'll see how that goes. Biggest strength for this team is their secondary, as far as their linebacker core is concerned and their defensive backs are concerned. They're preseason ranked number 1 in linebacker core, and it makes sense because they're bringing back their 2 top tacklers last year, and Henry. I can't even say his name. Tua'o, who was a transfer from Tennessee.
Well, and Anderson. Anderson, their defense.
And I was just kidding. Now, Will Anderson is an absolute destruction beast.
He's a Heisman. He's a Heisman.
But Henry was the top tackler last year, believe it or not. And then Will Anderson kind of fell. He was a playmaker. I won't say.
Well, he's an end. Or outside linebacker. I don't know what you consider him, what they consider him.
Right. He's considered a linebacker from what I've read.
But he plays end for
edge rusher.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and then you got the backfield. Actually, the defensive backs for the Alabama Crimson Tide. They're ranked 6th in preseason polls. Jordan Battle, who was 4th in tackles last year, is coming back, and they're top. They're going to actually bring in some of these top recruits. So there's a guy named which I love this name too, by the way, a good football name, Kool-Aid McKinstry. Yeah, he was a 5-star. I think he was in the top 4 in recruiting in 2021. And
what position does he play?
He's a corner.
Ooh, a Kool-Aid corner?
Yeah,
Wow.
Kool-Aid. And then they bring in LSU transfer in Eli Ricks, who's an absolute stud as well. So what they did is they just replaced the strength of that team from last year and just reloaded. So they're going to be fine there. The weaknesses and questions, I put this into a category. It's not really a weakness. It's more of a question. They're only bringing back 3 starters on the offensive line. So you have Vandy. They got a solid transfer with experience of Vandy, a left tackle, and a solid recruit on the right side, a 5-star guy again. So I think they're going to be fine on the line. I just don't know how that dynamic works when you're,
Well, there could be a depth issue, but I mean, I think we're so accustomed to Alabama and not really worried about it.
Yep. I think the concern on that team, though, is really the wide receivers. Is like trying to build that rapport that Bryce Young had with Williams and Mechie, because he's not going to have that this year.
Right.
And you saw what happened when he didn't have those weapons, and he kind of felt, it almost looked like he was lost. It felt like he was a real, true freshman for once. And you saw Georgia. I mean, granted, that defense was unbelievable. Right. You saw when he didn't have those guys on the field, it was a way different ball game. You saw Georgia come back. You saw them win. So I think that kind of played into he's only good as his weapons. The best receiver that he's bringing back is the tight end, Cameron Latu. So, I mean, it's a complete rebuild on as far as the passing weapons is concerned, and the running back too as well.
Yeah, and to me it's less about that for Bama to me than just the rest of that side. I don't know, man. What do you think about? Do you think they go undefeated in that side? Do you think they go undefeated?
Well, I don't want to give away my win totals yet. I do have a play on that.
Okay.
I will say this: the weakness of this team, if there is a weakness, it's the passing game of Alabama,
right?
And I don't. It's not really weakness. It's more of like, I don't know how that dynamic works. I just know this team reloads very well. And you hear everything from Nick Saban in his interviews. He felt like 2021 was a rebuild year, and this was supposed to be the year that they were supposed to excel. And granted,
their toughest games aren't. I mean, they have a relatively easy schedule. As far as SEC standards go, to me, let's look at this real quick. You know, the Utah State opener, which is an easy win.
Right.
Alabama at Texas. I mean, Texas is
that could be a tough. I don't know who Texas is yet.
I mean,
we'll get to the Big 12 stuff.
I've been saying that for 10 years with Texas.
I get it.
They're good. They're not ready to beat Alabama when Alabama's trying, but they are on the rebuild. I agree. Vanderbilt at home.
That's
Alabama. So at Arkansas is out at Arkansas, and then at home versus A&M. That's really where their season, I think is won or lost in those two games, because at Mississippi State, Tennessee, LSU, Mississippi, Austin P, Auburn, those are wins.
Correct.
So it's really, there's two games that, at Arkansas, who knows how good Arkansas is going to be. We'll talk about them next, probably. But
we'll get to. I got it on my list, but we'll get to that.
But to me, looking at this, the eyeball test probably tells me 11-1, 12-0.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. And this was something that I was scratching my head on throughout. And you always look for that game that Bama is sleeping. And I kind of want to predicate this to the game to watch. So I have one game that I saw on the schedule that could be a potential L, or it could be one of those highly motivated games on the Alabama side. So the game to watch, obviously, is Texas A&M. I think this is a revenge game for Alabama. I think Nick Saban losing to Jimbo Fisher probably chapped his ass a little bit, and it really showed in the what do you call it? SEC press conference
Right. The
meetings
media
or
days,
yep,
right?
media days. There we go.
Yeah.
So Nick Saban motivated with their loss, but it was basically a last second field goal, a drive that got him like down to like past the 40, and the guy just hit the poop shot. But they did it at Texas A&M. Now they get to play them at home. I just think Nick Saban is going to be a very grumpy, angry guy that
I
whole
agree.
week of prep and get those guys ready. This is the game he wants to win more than anything.
I know, but the week before they play at Arkansas, so that's to me.
Yes,
that's the tough.
That may be.
spot.
You're right. The Arkansas game may be the look ahead spot that you want to take Arkansas in whatever line they're going to get. But keep in mind on the game that Texas A&M won, they were an 18-point underdog at home against Bama. So just keep that line in mind when you're looking at that game, because that game is not till October 8th. So,
Yeah,
but
that's a good point. You can't see it being more than that.
no, I
Right?
think it's going to be shorter, but it's going to be. I don't
13
think.
and a half or something.
I mean, I don't think there's a line
Even
on.
that feels like too many, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think there's a line that you wouldn't take Bama.
Right.
At least the first half. I don't
Right.
think there's anything that would lead me to believe that Bama wouldn't come prepared for this game, especially with so many changes on the Texas A&M line. And I think that kind of segues us into Texas A&M.
Yeah, I think we both have them. We both have them too, right?
I
them too in the West? Okay.
I do. I think we'll do our final rankings at the end, but yes, I do have them at 2. I think this is the team that has, and if there's any shot in the SEC West, it's Texas A&M, and I don't think there's any question on both sides here. Pun, what are you seeing with Texas A&M this year?
So Texas A&M to me has always been a kind of a pretender in that conference. It's just I have Big 12 Texas A&M in my head, and them just kind of being a joke for a while. But I think they're close, man. They're really, really close to being in that. But if they didn't have Alabama, if they were in the East, I think I might have picked them to win the East.
Sure.
But being in the West, where it's so much more difficult, but I think A&M goes 7-1 in that conference, in that side of the conference, and their only loss being Alabama, and then they can really run the table. I mean, they get Arkansas at home, which is a huge benefit, I think, because I think Arkansas is going to be pretty good. They get LSU at home as well. So they kind of have a favorable schedule other than that Alabama game, which if they step up and beat Alabama, then they're in the driver's seat, I believe, in the West. And they have, I think they're poised. They've had some great recruiting classes the past 3 or 4 seasons,
right?
Last season as well. So I think they're ready to roll. What about you?
I think there's going to be a time for Texas A&M, and I don't know if it's going to be now or if it's going to be 2-3 years down the road. But I think they're setting themselves up to be a real leader in the SEC West and probably take over Alabama in that spot. So from a strength standpoint, I had them from a running back position. They lost Spiller from last year, but they're in better hands now. If you ever watched Devon A-Chain run the ball, he's good. He's better than Spiller in my opinion. He had more yards per carry than Spiller did. He averaged 7 yards per carry last year compared to like 5.3 with Spiller. Spiller was kind of like he kind of had some regression from his junior season. I think his sophomore junior season. He had nearly 1,000 yards splitting carries with Spiller. So I think he's going to get more carries this year. I think he was getting 60-40 or 60 or 65-35 with Spiller in the lineup. Now he's going to get all the carries. That kid is absolutely dangerous.
Well, he did a lot of damage on special teams, didn't he? A-Chain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's quick. He's elusive, and he can break tackles. And they have a good offensive line too. So it's a perfect spot for him to excel in the SEC. The question on this one that everybody always is questioning is Texas A&M on the quarterback position. Calzada actually transferred to Auburn, and I think he's the backup for Auburn in week 1. So I don't know what that transition was.
I don't think that's much of a loss for A&M in my opinion.
No, and you know why is because I mean, if anyone watched, I was really high on Max Johnson in spots last year. He's a good quarterback. He was the main quarterback for LSU last year.
Right.
And you actually look at his statistics, is like he didn't make a lot of mistakes on the picks. He threw a lot of touchdowns on a team that was on the absolute skid, on the verge of a coaching change, and had a mass exodus and went to Texas A&M. This is a perfect spot for him and to really excel with Texas A&M. So I think this is an upgrade at the quarterback position for Texas A&M. Do you agree?
I totally agree. I think that Calzada guy was a stopgap.
No, he was in a filler position, and they were kind of reluctant to get the wins.
He reminded me of a worse version of Tannehill.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, had decent mobility, probably not fit to play the position.
Right.
At least at first glance. Obviously, Tannehill's an NFL quarterback,
yeah.
So that's different, but it just kind of felt the same way to me.
So on the weakness side, their defensive line, the linebacker core are going to be very young and inexperienced. They lost a lot on that end as far as defense. Only 5 defensive starters coming back for them. So there is some concerns from the defensive perspective. So you're really going to have to bear the load on the offense and kind of rely on your defense to make a few stops here and there, and then the offense is going to score a lot of points. So maybe what you're going to see from a Texas A&M side, you have a really good quarterback that can pass. The wide receivers are great and athletic, but they just didn't have their potential was limited based on the quarterback. And then you have a great run game aside of that, good offensive line. I think this is going to be a very high scoring team. So if you're looking from over perspective, anything within 50 to 56, I think that's probably you're just going to have to take the over and rely on Texas A&M. I don't know if Texas A&M and Tennessee have to play each other, but I can't imagine that over is going to be like 80 to 90 on that one.
Yeah, I don't know if they play each other either.
Yep.
I don't think they definitely don't. But A&M's got a fairly easy schedule. Their toughest game is probably Arkansas at home, obviously at Alabama.
Yep.
And then, I mean, other than that, at Auburn maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, they have Miami is their only test, out of the conference. But that's at home as well. So
Miami's not a tough out either. We'll get to ACC, but I'm telling you, I'm going to be very high on Miami this year.
Yeah, I think Miami has a chance to be okay, but at A&M, 9 o'clock, it's a late game. It's going to be rocking. So I think we're both simpatico on the A&M Aggies as being really, really good, second in the West.
Yep.
With some luck, maybe sneaking into that championship game.
Another good note about the Aggies too, their secondary is going to be very tough. They're ranked number 2 preseason right now. 4 out of the 5 starters in the secondary are coming back. Antonio Johnson, Damani Jones, who were number 2 and number 3 top tacklers for them last season. And that kind of tells you where Texas A&M's defense is basically keep everything in front of you and hopefully hold them to field goals.
Right.
Yep. Game to watch. I think we might be on the same side on the game to watch. Do you think it's Arkansas? Or do you think it's Alabama?
Well, I mean, I think it's because Arkansas game's first.
Yep. I
think it's probably Arkansas.
We're on the same page too. I have Arkansas. So Arkansas, they lost to Arkansas in the same spot last year by 10. As 4
only because I think that Arkansas game dictates a lot for both of those teams.
But it also is a revenge spot. So because Texas A&M did lose to them by 10.
Right.
So, but they were a dog. So now they get to play them at home. Actually, no. Did they play them at Arlington? Yeah, they play them at Neutral Field. They play them at
you're right.
Jerry's World.
You're right.
Yep. So it's a revenge spot in Jerry's World. A big game. Big. It's like I trust Jimbo Fisher more in this spot with the team that he has. Offensively, they're going to be better. Defensively is still a question. Texas A&M is the best option in the SEC West to go at Alabama, and that's tough because they beat Alabama last year at home. So,
You're right.
all right. So we're in the team you want to talk about.
All right.
That you're
1 and
high
2.
on. Arkansas
Razorbacks.
Razorbacks.
I know them well. I'm very close to them.
Yeah, give me what you think.
I think Arkansas. What did I have them going? I had them going 6-2 in the West. I could see them winning a lot of games this year.
Yep.
Maybe a precursor to my team total pick.
Oh, okay. I think I might have a take on Arkansas. So,
but no, dude, Arkansas I think is legit.
Yep.
Gonna have a Heisman quarterback potentially.
Mhm.
He's their best option. He's not gonna win the Heisman, but he could be in the top 10, obviously. But dude, I mean, it's set up well for Arkansas.
yeah,
It's set up really well for Arkansas to win 10 games, right? I mean, eclipsing that would be a dream season, but 9-10 wins is should be in the bag for them this year. This is the trajectory that they're on. So if they want to ride that wave from last season, they got to take advantage of it this year.
Mhm.
Before OU and Texas, everybody come in a couple years.
Yeah, I don't hate the take. I do have some concerns here and there with the team compared to last year. So KJ Jefferson is coming back. He's a leading rusher. He's the quarterback. He is the sole source of the offense. The offensive line, they're bringing back 4 out of 5 starters are coming back, and they're having a junior replacement at left tackle. That's the only person that they lost on the line. So that squad is ranked 13th preseason as far as their offensive line is concerned. So that's a good spot for them. I think there's an improvement on the line, and then you have KJ Jefferson, a year older, a year wiser. This is going to be a real tough team in the SEC West. So seeing them have a look at, in a position and a look ahead spot with Alabama, I mean, I could see that game going awry for Bama. If they get that 1L, I think that really affects the team total.
No, and they do have a bye week between that A&M game and the Alabama game, which they need.
Yep. The concern that I have though is with the weaknesses, the defensive side of the ball, they're losing a lot on the defense. They're coming back with 4 starters on defense and losing 4 out of their 5 leading tacklers from last season.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be a transition there that I don't know if it's going to be for the good or for the bad. And the wide receiver position is also lacking some experience. They had to dip into the transfer portal. They went and got a guy from UGA, went and got a guy from Oklahoma. So we'll see how that transition happens. But granted, KJ Jefferson, if he doesn't see a guy open, he's running. So, I mean, that's kind of his MO, and he's got a good offensive line to protect him. So I think the Arkansas offense, at the very least, should be kind of linear to what they were last year.
If Jefferson can play faster this year than he did last year, Arkansas has a chance. He was very tentative. You could see at some spots he was not. Oh, it's Bama's world that we're flipping it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Unfortunately, dude.
Yes. Until proven different.
Until the NIL money kicks in.
Yeah. Yes, and I think that's what I mean. I think it's. I was talking to my dad on the way here, off story, because we just like talking college football when I'm driving home, and I said, this feels like Nick Saban's last dance, Jordan Pippen and Phil Jackson. This kind of feels that way, and he's acting that way too.
Yeah, I feel like he's getting a little testier.
Yeah, with
all the rule changes, he's kind of like,
Yeah. All right, game to watch. What do you when you're looking at the board? We already talked about Alabama. Is there anything on the board that really sticks out to you as a game that Arkansas is in a good position?
So
gambling wise,
it's their opening game for Cincinnati. To me, that's going to tell me what how good Arkansas is.
Yeah.
If they take care of business with Cincinnati. That game is obviously at home, which helps, but Cincinnati is replacing their quarterback, but I think they're still going to be a pretty damn good team. So it's not a rollover by any means, and that's good scheduling by Arkansas, but It's a tough opener, but it's going to tell a lot about that team as they move in toward SEC play. They take advantage of Cincinnati. It's going to set them up for success big time. They lose to Cincinnati, could be in a little bit of trouble because it doesn't. They get South Carolina, then they get Missouri State, and then they get A&M. So you kind of have to beat Cincinnati to open the season if you want to keep your playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, you're right. That a good non-conference win off a team that made the college football playoff last year. It's absolutely perfect.
It might not be the biggest marquee game on their schedule, but it's the one that I think is going to dictate how good they are. And for Cincinnati too,
Right.
So,
the game that I actually picked, I went with this is a revenge game. So I kind of, you'll see a pattern with me is like, I looked at everybody's schedule. I looked how close the games were. And then I kind of looked at the box score of the fluke stuff that happened. And this is one of those games. So Arkansas plays Ole Miss at home on November 19th. Now, if you actually watched the game last year, it was an absolute offensive juggernaut.
Oh yeah.
Granted, you're playing Ole Miss, but Arkansas really stepped their game up in that one. They lost 52-51 in this game, and it was due to a missed 2-point conversion. And sealed the deal. It was on the road. Now they get them at home in Arkansas. DJ Jefferson, if you look at the stats between him and Matt Corral in that game, DJ Jefferson by far had a better game.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And if you want a trend in this one, the dog is 12-2 against the spread in this matchup with 6 outright upsets. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this game, when they set the line for this. I don't know if Arkansas is going to be better. We're saying probably yes. And then you got Mississippi, Ole Miss sitting in this spot. Let's see what the situation arises, but keep that in mind as you're looking at this game. So the dog is probably the play regardless, but I like Arkansas in the revenge spot.
All right, so we agree top 3.
Yep.
All right, what's number 4? Who you got number 4 in the West?
So I want to talk about Hottie Toddy, gosh almighty, who the hell are we? Flip flam bim bam, Ole Miss by damn. What are your thoughts on Ole Miss? Ole Miss.
And I have them 4th as well. I have them going 3 and 5 and being 4th in the West. I think they've reloaded. I trust Lane Kiffin to plug and play. I know he's losing a lot, but I mean, they have a favorable schedule. They just need to win their non-conference games to give themselves a chance. I think the 4 through 7 in the West is pretty, right?
It's interchangeable for sure. I was juggling back and forth coming up with a ranking.
I can't see Ole Miss, LSU, Mississippi State, or Auburn getting into that top 2. Could you?
I think it's on paper, I think it's a Texas A&M, Bama
so I really want to
challenge.
Basically, I want to lead on you for some Ole Miss breakdown. I didn't do a ton of research on Ole Miss other than I think they're just I think they're probably a 7 and 5 team, 8 and 4 team.
So
depending on their non-conference.
So for Ole Miss, the biggest thing right now is the offense is getting changed. Elijah Moore is gone. Right. Matt Corral's gone. Ely's gone. So basically the top 3 weapons on your squad are in the NFL or just gone. Primarily in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So my strength on this one actually is kind of funny. It's the running back position for Ole Miss. They actually pulled the TCU transfer in Zach Evans, who had 7.3 yards per carry. If you remember him from the Big 12,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's now at Ole Miss, taking the carries, picking up the reins where Ely left off. And also another interesting one, which I called this my question. Jackson Dart's going to be the starter for Ole Miss this year. This might be a good spot for him. He was, a lot of these USC
transfer, right?
Yeah, he's USC transfer. a lot of these guys you're going to see on SEC teams or other teams, as well as LSU. Like once a coach leaves, everybody transfers. Jackson Dart falling into that realm, especially when Williams took over at USC and Lincoln Riley. So the question is, can he produce like Matt Corral did? From what I saw at USC, I don't know if that's gonna maybe he needed Lane Kiffin. I don't know. We'll see. I know it improved Matt Corral's game having Lane Kiffin run the offense, and every quarterback that he's had under him has really produced and been productive as a quarterback. So we'll see how that goes with Ole Miss. The strength on this one, the offensive line, they're bringing back 4 out of 5 starters and only losing the right guard. So usually I always look for the blindside tackle to, if that's getting replaced and they're replacing with a young guy, that's kind of like the concerns I usually have. But if most of the offensive line is gelled, they've played together, they know each other's cadences. I think that's going to work well for Ole Miss. 7 starters back on the defensive side. They lost their top 2 tacklers, but Ole Miss is not a good defense. So if they told me 11's all the starters came back, I'd still be like, well, then that means are they gonna suck again? Are they gonna have to rely on the offense to produce? Are we gonna have one of the situations where you're not gaining any ground, you're just stuck in the mud? But that's all I had really for notes on Ole Miss. Do you have a game to watch by any chance?
I mean, probably when Kentucky comes to town early in the season, I think it's October 1st.
That's a good one.
That will tell me a lot about Ole Miss. I mean, the Egg Bowl, is that what it's called, right? The Egg Bowl.
You're getting to my game. Yep.
I mean, that's always a fun game to watch, but
yes,
both those teams are going to be average teams, so it's not necessarily going to probably matter in the grand scheme of things. But to me, that Kentucky game matters for Mississippi if they're gonna eclipse what I think they're gonna do.
There's no D in Ole Miss for sure. He's right. There isn't. There's no D in Ole Miss. There's no D in Rebels either. But my game, you hit on my game to watch on this one is it's the Egg Bowl. It's Mississippi State. It's Ole Miss. It's the last game of the season. Mike Leach is 0-2 in Egg Bowls, but the home team is 0-7 against the spread in this matchup as well. So I think I'll have to look who the home team is on this one. I think it's
Mississippi. It's Mississippi.
It's Mississippi. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're betting Mississippi State. I'm a little bit higher on we'll get to Mississippi State in a minute, but I'm higher on the spectrum on Mississippi State, but I do have some concerns with them as well. But I think that game is it's a revenge game. They didn't play well. They made a lot of mistakes. I think you got Will Rogers from Mississippi State, a year older, year wiser. And you bring in back a lot of talent on that team. So it's one of those spots that I think if you're going to take out Ole Miss in an Egg Bowl, this is the one. And I think it's going to favor Mississippi State more than it does Ole Miss.
So who do you have 5?
This is not rankings, by the way. My rankings I'll give at the end. So I'm just throwing teams out there at this point. You heard my 1 and 2. My 1 and 2 are Texas A&M and Alabama.
Well, the way we've done it so far has been my ranking.
Oh, really? I'm just going down how I.
So just letting you know, it's worked out well for me.
Okay. So the next one I got is the Auburn Tigers. I can't imagine you have them ranked this high.
No, I do not.
Okay. So me the same. So what are your thoughts on Auburn?
Rebuild. I think it's a rebuild. I think they're going to struggle. Is what I think. Until the Alabama game, and they'll probably play Alabama close somehow because that's just the Iron Bowl. But I'm going 2-6 in the West.
Yep.
Finishing tied for last. But man, I don't know a whole lot about Auburn. They'll have players, but it's hard to. If Auburn was in a different conference, they would probably be an 8-win team. But being in the SEC West just puts you at such a disadvantage unless you're one of those top 2 teams. So they're going to struggle unless something happens unless somebody comes out of nowhere that I don't know about.
Correct.
Like Johnny
I'm
Manziel.
with you on this.
You know what I mean? Something's crazy would have to happen for them to surprise me.
So based on my notes, I have Tank Bigsby is probably the best thing that came back to Auburn. I mean, he's over 1,000-yard rusher. He's the sole source of their offense, and his backup Jacquez Hunter is also pretty good too. So the 1-2 combination with them is going to be a very reliable source for them to even get anything going on the offensive side. The question mark I got for them is the quarterback. Bo Nix went to Oregon. TJ Finley and Zach Calzada are going to be competing. I assume. I assume TJ Finley is the guy, and that's what everything that I've read on is. He's probably the guy, but I just don't know if that's going to really produce anything in the passing game.
Right.
Strength-wise, top 10 offensive line. They're bringing back 4 out of 5 starters, and then the person that they added was a JUCO guy. So that I think they're going to be fine from an offensive line standpoint, especially when they allowed their running backs to get 4.7 yards per carry last season. So good offensive line. They can produce on the ground game, and then that kind of complements the passing game.
Yep, I think they're going to have to win 30 games, low-scoring games, which is going to be tough for them to do. The game I'm looking forward to the most is Penn State at Auburn.
Yes, same thing. I'm on the same thing
because I love big-time non-conference games. Kind of gets me jacked up. And then I also like Penn State. Yeah, it's a big program, going to a big program. Although Auburn's not great, but they're going to be juiced for that game. So could create some momentum for them. They could be, they could be 5-0, 6-0, but then their schedule gets tough. So I'm just always interested to see a team like Auburn in the SEC versus a kind of top tier team from another conference. So like a mid-level SEC versus a top tier other conference. Just to see how they compare, because it kind of gives you something to base off when it comes to the bowl games and the other thing going forward to see, okay, well, the SEC is down, is it up? How'd they play versus Penn State? Penn State's okay, but they blew out Auburn, so it kind of gives you a barometer early in the season.
No, I'm on the same thing. That was the game to watch that I had there too. 2 squads that went against each other the last year. If you watch that Auburn had to play in a night game whiteout in Penn State. Tough spot. Penn State just doesn't
almost
lose
beat
those
them,
games.
didn't
they? They had to drive
close?
they were driving down the field and they lost the game on downs. But I think they got to the 30, so it was
Bo
one of
Nix
those
kind of almost brought them back, right?
Right, they were down 8 points, so they could have tied the game and gotten to overtime. That was kind of the spot they were in at Penn State at night in a whiteout. Unbelievable performance.
That's a bucket list. That's a bucket list for me anyway. We'll talk about the Big Ten probably next week.
Yes.
So who's next? We got
Mississippi State.
Okay, Mississippi State is
got to have more cowbell.
It's Leach, so they're going to be interesting. We know that.
He's a great regular season coach.
Mississippi State is maybe the one team that I could get wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If I could pick one team out of the West to be like you're completely wrong on, it was Mississippi State. Because like you said, they have Will Rogers coming back, another year of Leach, another year of getting his guys in there, a lot of support from the school. They're a kind of a team to watch.
Yes.
If anybody would be a dark horse in the West.
Yeah.
To exceed expectations.
Yeah. If you actually look at the games from last year, they lost like 3 games, 2 points or less. So that's a good sign where that team is going. They were really young last year. I mean, Will Rogers I think he was a freshman last year or a redshirt or something like that. So I have that as their strength. He's ranked number 4 in a lot of polls as far as quarterbacks are concerned. He completed 73.9% of his passes last year. That is incredible. And he had 36 touchdowns, 9 INTs.
Yeah,
those were his stats. A team that passed 95% of the time.
That's kind of hard to believe, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
How good this kid is.
You think they would have been better than they were?
You also got to look at the experience factor for this team. Like this team made a bowl game. 10 starters just opted out like an hour before a game, and I was pissed off because I had Mississippi State on that game because I was like, oh, they're gonna all play, and then all of a sudden they don't.
Hate that. You got to figure that out.
Yeah, that's a pet peeve I have with like non,
right.
bowl games that don't matter.
Non-playoff bowl games, pretty
Correct.
much. Yeah.
But they bring back 8 offensive starters, 9 on the defensive side. This squad went 7-5, and yeah, like I said, 3 losses were by 3 points or less. I mean, this is a team that you have to watch.
Well, the problem, you're going to say the same thing as I'm going to say.
Okay, I want to hear what you say about it.
They played Bama and Georgia.
You're hitting it right on the head. That you know what they rank as far as strength of schedule goes.
I mean, oh God, top 10.
You're right. It's actually ranked number 2.
Yeah.
Do you know who's ranked number 1?
Let's think. A&M.
Auburn.
Okay.
They have the toughest schedules. They have played. This is what's going to kill this team is the strength of schedule. They have to play at LSU, a game that they're going to win. They have to win. It's a revenge game. A&M at home, Alabama on the road, UG at home. So they get their 2 tough opponents at home.
Kentucky away. I mean,
they have some away games that could really bung them up too. I think they have to play Arkansas, right?
They play Arkansas away. They play Arkansas at home. They do play Mississippi away, but like you said earlier, that might be a good thing, right?
Yeah. It really is. Yeah. So they're positioned well enough to, maybe get an upset there. And Mike Leach in his 3rd year, Texas A&M, Washington State, he's usually in this spot, in this window is where, holy shit, Mike Leach is back. You've heard it. This is the 3rd rendition. So I'm really going to be high on this Mississippi State team. The problem that I have is their strength of schedule. Yep. They had some very tough games this year, and they're going to have to overcome them.
I think Leach has something to prove. I also think Mississippi State is hoping for a good pod in 2025 to get out of this SEC West.
Game to watch. What do you think about Mississippi State?
To me, it is at home versus A&M.
Yes, good game.
They play A&M tough, or they even beat A&M somehow. That game in Alabama just becomes much more intriguing.
Right.
But that's the game to watch to me, because I know at LSU is probably going to be a fun game to watch, but I think those teams are pretty even, in my opinion. So nothing really non-conference is much for Mississippi State. It's probably not going to be very, very exciting, but I think that game that will be my game to watch. A&M at home.
Yeah, so my game to watch is actually week 1. It's Memphis and Mississippi State.
Well, you already have a bet on that game.
I do, and I've already talked about it.
I'm going
to talk about it again and again. And people can shit on me if this game loses, but the Bulldogs lost to Memphis on the road, and they had a shot, and they threw a pick 6 in that game that really knocked them out, and they still scored another touchdown, and it came down to a 2-point conversion to tie the game and go to overtime, and they couldn't do it. Memphis is the toughest place to get a W. Memphis is on a win streak at home, and they just beat everybody, even though Mississippi State had a plus 22 net yard average. They dominated on the yardage battle in that game, and they still lost, which is kind of remarkable. And that usually if you go back and look at stuff like that, when you see a plus 22 and the team lost, you go back to turnovers, and that's what it was.
I'll say this: if Mississippi State loses to Memphis, they're fucked.
They won't lose. The question is they cover, because this game went from a 3-point game where Mississippi State was favored on the road. Now they're minus 17 at home. So the line tells the story. This is going to be a blowout. It's going to be an absolute beating. Memphis,
it better be.
Yeah. Memphis is bringing back a lot of guys too. including the quarterback, but it doesn't matter because they suck on the road. I want Memphis to be full squatted from last year to go play Will Rogers pissed off to go set the tone. All right, so my next team.
One.
Yeah, who that Tiger?
So,
I can't say, I don't know. That was my impression of Brian Kelly doing a fucking Bayou accent.
Okay, so are you gonna just hate this team out of spite? What's your deal?
It's not spite, it's logical thinking. Okay, so what are your thoughts on LSU? Now let me hear your thoughts first.
To me, LSU is a complete wild card. It's a complete I don't know. They're gonna have players. They have a brand new coach that's very unfamiliar with the conference,
right?
Which to me is not a good thing. I don't think you just walk into the SEC, especially the SEC West, and own it in 3 or 4 years maybe. But I don't know. I don't think he walked into a great spot. I mean, who's their quarterback? I mean, is he?
It's
a
Daniels.
revolving door. What's his name left? Johnson transferred.
It's Jaden Daniels.
Okay, so he's a transfer.
He's a transfer from Arizona State.
Yeah, so does that get you excited? No. I think Ole Miss. I think LSU is going to struggle. I could see them finishing last in the West with only a couple conference wins, because their home field is going to get them some wins.
Yeah.
Just because they're LSU, but I mean Florida State at home. Who knows? They're probably an equal team to Florida State right now.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't see a lot of victories on their schedule.
No.
I mean, Florida State at home, Southern University at home, which is a win.
Yep.
Mississippi State at home. You think Mississippi State's going to win that?
Yes.
New Mexico at home.
Yep.
That's a win. At Auburn, probably a loss. Tennessee at home, probably a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Florida, loss. Mississippi at home, maybe a win, probably a coin flip game. Alabama at home, loss. At Arkansas, loss. UAB win. At A&M, loss.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think they're lucky to make a bowl. Is the way what I feel about LSU this year.
I agree. I think we're on the same path on this one. So I think that I want to talk about something positive about LSU this year. I think their wide receiver quorum is absolutely electric. Problem is they don't have a quarterback that's going to be able to throw to them this year. This squad is ranked number 5 in the country in preseason polls that I've seen from a positional standpoint, and they're bringing back a guy that's going to get clipped in the first round in Keyshawn Butte. And I feel bad for this kid. I think he's a local boy there, but he's an absolute fucking beast if you can actually get the ball to him. Their strength on this side, defense will be a strength for them. They're ranked number 10 in the country as far as overall defense. The defensive line is going to be ranked that high. And they're bringing back 2 top edge rushers on that side. So they're going to be able to put pressure on the quarterback. I just don't know if they're going to be able to, score on offense and actually make stops on the defensive side, especially in the passing game with the corners in question. Weakness we already kind of talked about with JT Daniels. He's the ASU transfer. You saw him last year play. Mobile quarterback, can run. He can move his feet. His passing is kind of in question, but they don't really have any other options at quarterback because basically all of them transferred. All of them left. And the only 6 starters coming back are mostly wide receivers. So you have an offensive line issue, which is pivotal. You have a quarterback issue that in an offense that he hasn't played. You have a new coach in an offense that he's trying to develop. There's just nothing in sight that looks positive for this LSU team whatsoever. So I think they're going to have they're at the bottom of the heap, in my opinion, of the SEC West.
Yeah. Yep. I have them tied with LSU, Mississippi State, and Auburn all tied for 5th, 6th, 7th on that side.
Yeah.
I think they're all in the same bucket. What do you think? You want to take a quick break, grab a beverage, and then talk some SEC East?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have to figure out.
That sounds good. I'm kind of thirsty. Just
Yes.
let's pause this.
We're gonna pause this.
Stop it.
We'll stop here. We did the SEC West. We're gonna go and do the SEC East right after this. After this break, we'll be back.
Back.